Hello artists, my name is Megan Erdman. I am here helping the Blandon Art Museum. I currently work in Eagle Grove, Iowa at the Eagle Grove Elementary as an art teacher, and I'm here to demonstrate some watercoloring with you. So first I'm going to start off by showing you the supplies that you have. So you'll have your sketchbook with you, and then you also are provided with a little paint. Comes with a paintbrush. Then if you have other paintbrushes on hand, that's also cool to use as well. Some other things that maybe you have laying around that you could use, like if you just have a cup, you could use yogurt containers, sour cream containers, butter containers, whatever you got around the house. You can use that to put your water in as well. Some other supplies that I have here, I'm going to be using, I ripped off a piece of paper to demonstrate some texture later. Some other paintbrushes that we have lying around is we've got this nice flat one that I'll demonstrate how I like to use that one. We've got some that are shorter and skinnier. Those are nice for the fine details. Paper towels if you need to clean off your paintbrush before using another color. And then there's also maybe you have a paint palette laying around that you can use. That's really great if you're using like a tube of paint and you want to mix colors and blend on here. So that's nice to have on hand as well. I also have some color pencils that I might use to do some details and stuff with the watercolor. Some things that I'm going to be demonstrating are how to do wet on wet, a color bleed, blending colors, a graded wash, how to do just wet paint on dry, splatter, maybe doing some finger painting, the crumpled paper, and then dry brush. So first I'm just going to kind of show you just little tiny pictures of that, and then I'll probably show you what I like to do when I am watercoloring. So to start off, to do wet on wet, you want to get a paintbrush. You can use one that you have on hand or the one that came with the set, and you just want to get some water, lots of water, and then I like to saturate my colors because I like bright, vibrant colors. So I used blue and red before, but I might try doing like green. I haven't really used the green a whole lot yet. So I added the green, and you can see how it's really diluted right there. So when you do wet on wet, that just like really thins out your paint, and it's kind of more malleable, and you can like mix colors more easily that way. The more water you use, the easier it is to blend your colors. For a color bleed, I like to do wet on dry, and that just makes the colors really vibrant. So I started with the primary colors on my paper, and I'll probably do that again just because they blend nicely. So your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green, and then red and blue make purple. So I'll try to do all of those so you can see how those blend together. So I like to get my paints really wet. That helps them bleed together. You can see I kind of made a rainbow. When you have the colors right next to each other, they'll bleed into each other, create a nice rainbow effect. So the more water but more color just blends really nicely, and I love the way that looks. Next I'm going to do a graded wash, and what that is, it's kind of when I start out like with a lot of paint and then I just add more water as I go. Sometimes it just naturally does that, but sometimes I have to add more water. I did blue on here, but I might do the red. So once again, I love lots of water. And when I start out, it'll be thick, but as I go, it kind of thins out, and I use water to help that fade too. So you notice how it's dark on the top, and then it fades into a lighter color, almost looks a little pink. The more water you add, the lighter color your paint will be. And then wet on dry, kind of similar to what I've been doing already, just adding It's just your dry paper, opposite of wet on wet. Wet on wet, you have the water down, then you add your color. Here it's your paint's wet and you're just adding it to the dry paper. So it's just really vibrant and just nice, and I like the brightness of that. Next, I'm going to demonstrate splatter. This can get messy. My students go crazy and sometimes their face is covered. It looks insane, but they have fun doing it. So obviously, like splattering, the kids like to get crazy, but something that you can do that's not as crazy is just tapping the paintbrush. A lot of my kids they'll flick it, and I don't know, I just think that's just extra messy. Their fingers are getting full of paint. I just like to tap. Just tap it. I'll do a couple colors. I just did green. Maybe I'll add some blue into that. And once again, the more water you have, the better it is to splatter it. So as you can see, just by tapping, you get the splatters. Next is fingerprints. Kids love getting messy. They just love to paint. So this all washes off nicely. I did this not too long ago and it washed just fine off my fingers. So I just paint on my finger and I dab it on my paper. I like to have the kids go until it just disappears. I kind of like when it's not as saturated, because then you can see the lines in your fingerprint, and that's fun. It gives it texture, some dimension. The crumpled paper is fun. Other things you could do for textures, like using Q-tip or cotton balls. I could probably demonstrate with my paintbrush how to maybe get like a little like firework looking one. So crumpled paper, what I did for mine is I first just did a regular layer, kind of thinned it out. So I'm going to just use red and just do that wet on dry. And then I dipped my second one in another color. And so just make sure your paint is wet. And I just ripped a piece of paint off from the back and dip it in there. And then I just like to dab and give it some texture. Kind of almost looks tie-dye-ish. Kind of looks like tie-dye. That's really fun. Tie-dye's in. I mean, like tie-dye. And then dry brush. So what that is, I'm not the best at dry brush, but for me, what I think it is I'm just getting this and I'm not dipping it in water again. I'm just using it to spread it out as much as I can. And then it kind of just gives it like a scratchy feel. And so dry brush, I mean, not my favorite thing to do, but some people are really good at it. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you what I like to do, what I love seeing my kids do. They're just so free-spirited and they come up with the best things. So I'm going to try to use a couple different things on here. I'll probably do a lot of the wet on wet and the color bleed. I just like abstract, just big shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and just I'll try to talk through it as I'm going, but I like to do, so if in my classroom, I'm actually going to play with some of these paintbrushes. This one's really nice and soft. Let's play with that one. Oh yeah, spreads it out really nicely. So this one's a bit stiffer of a paintbrush. It's like plastic, where some of your paintbrushes are made with like actual like horse hair, and it's really nice and creamy when you paint it on. Yep, and it can spread a lot farther when you have a nice quality paintbrush. So right now, I'm just being random about where I put my colors. Right now it's just some red spots. And a lot of times I just go in color order. The kids always think they need a different paintbrush. You don't, it's okay. And I'll use some of this pink. And I just like to be random. So right now I'm just kind of sticking with the wet on dry, but I've got two colors right here. I might add some blue in the middle, and since my paint from the red and the pink isn't dry, I'm going to add in my blue. So some of it is wet on wet, and some of it is wet on dry. So the wet on dry is blue, but then I blended it here, and then it's kind of bleeding, so now I got like a purple and a light purple color. Don't be afraid to mix colors, create new colors. If you mix blue and green, you're gonna get blue-green. That's always a fun color. I always love hearing my students when they create a new color and they're like, whoa, I made teal. Like their favorite word is teal. So when they make it, they're like, I made teal, it's so fun. So like when they create a new color, that's the best. Just your excitement when you're painting. Don't be afraid to put red by green. It maybe doesn't make like the prettiest color. It might turn more like a brown, but don't be afraid to do that. Oh, yes. My favorite color is like a chartreuse color. So I love to add yellow into green. So now I've got this like limey green color. I love that. That's a really fun color. So far I've done wet on wet, done wet on dry. I'm doing a lot of color bleeding. So that's mixing in. Oh, maybe I should add some yellow into the red. Remember, yellow and red makes orange. All right, I think now I'm gonna try to add in some texture. I'm gonna keep working with my paper. I'm going to take, I wonder what happens if I haven't used the black yet. I should. Put some black on there. So I've gotten my black wet. I'm not gonna use my paintbrush, I'm gonna use my crumpled up paper. So I'm gonna see what happens when I add some black in there. And this is all an experiment. Like there's no such thing as wasting paint. You're experimenting, you're having fun. Well, that's cool. So when I add texture, I like to space it out and maybe not do it all in the same spot. So look at how that black's just leaving a cool pattern. I like how that's looking. I think then maybe I do some blue too. I like blue. And then, so remember, also I haven't brought up warm and cool colors. So your warm colors on this palette are your red, pink, orange, and yellow. And then your cool colors are green, blue, brown, and black. And then if you mix like purple's kind of in the middle. It depends on like, it just depends on where you are on the color scale. But I normally, purple for me is more of a cool color. But it just depends on kind of, if you use purple with the warm colors, then it's gonna come off more warm. So I'm gonna try, I'm going to splatter. Okay, I'm gonna stick with the skinny brush just because the splatter won't be as aggressive. But, so right now my colors are really light. But when I splatter, it might, oh yeah. So this is fun too, when you splatter on wet paint, it kind of just like, it spreads out really cool. Like look at that texture. That's really fun. Maybe some yellow. Because then it might land on another color and turn green or orange. Also, another thing to, that you could do is like, orange on blue, they're complementary colors, so they're going to help each other pop. So to figure out what a complementary color is if you're looking at a color wheel, it's the colors right across from each other. Those are complementary and work well together. Some colors to think about are like red and green. That's like big during the holiday season. Or purple, so blue and orange, maybe if you're a huge Cowboys fan. There you go, that's their colors. Yellow and purple, you and I, Vikings, complementary colors. So a lot of sports will use complementary colors. Let's do some orange. Something else I like to do when I'm watercoloring is after I've done that, I like to go in some other supplies. Like you do have colored pencils in your kit. You could go in after and add designs with your colored pencils. I like to use white a lot after I've finished painting and do like little dots, lines, squiggles. That is what I like to do with mine. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one off gently because it's still very damp and set this off to the side so it can dry. And then I might try doing some finger painting. And I'm going to demonstrate in another video that I'm in some other ways that you can use your fingers to create art. But I think I'm going to see what happens when I finger paint. Oh, no, you know what I'm going to do? Light bulb. I'm going to go back to this. Sometimes you just have a light bulb and you are going to go back to it. I'm going to finger paint on here, okay? So I like doing dots and blobs. Like dots are really in right now. Yep, doing that. Some people are believers in less is more. I think more is more. I don't think you can get too carried away when you're working with paint. Oh, what if I do? Okay, I'm going to color bleed on my finger a couple colors. So I'm going to do green and blue and see how that turns out. I haven't done all of this. This is like, we're experimenting. Let's see what happens. That's fun. So also what I'm doing is layering. I like to also call it like process art. This is taking time. You can come back, you can add to it again. I'm going to dry my finger off. So far, this is what is happening with my paper. Look at that. That's really fun. And something that I would do then when I'm done with this is I would mat it, frame it, hang it up on the wall. That's how I feel when I think my art is complete. I like to add some matting and hang it up on the wall, show it off to everybody. That's what I like to do. So this is really fun. I used all the colors except for brown because I'm a huge color person. All right. So today we have talked about wet on wet. We've talked about color bleeding, graded wash, wet on dry, splatter, fingerprints, crumpled paper, and dry brush. So hopefully you've been experimenting while I've been talking, and now's the time that if you have any questions, if there's something that you like to use and you want to share with me, that'd be great. I'd love to know the different materials you like to use when you're painting. It might be a new thing that I haven't done yet. While you're coming up with ideas, I'm just going to keep painting and maybe try a couple other things while we're waiting here. Something that I thought of that I want to do is I want to do, so here I've got some I'm going to maybe do some movement stuff, maybe some waves with like the blue and the green. So for movement, you could do waves. So when I say movement, your piece isn't actually moving, but the shapes and the marks that you are making help the painting look like maybe it's moving. And I might color bleed while I do this. So I'm making waves and I'm also blending them as well. And you can always too, you don't have to keep dipping in the color. You could just, if you want it to be lighter, keep adding water to it. So I've made waves, but then also I blend them together, creating a new color. Another one I want to try is doing some crisscross, kind of like a checkerboard or plaid. I like to see how the colors blend and create new colors. So I'm choosing red and orange for this. Oh, maybe some yellow. I might go like diagonal with the yellow. So I've created kind of a yellow orange. I've created red orange. And the reason I'm saying like orange second after those colors is when, so your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Your secondary colors are orange, purple, and green. And then when you combine your primary and your secondary together, you get a tertiary. And so you always say the primary color first. So if I'm mixing red and orange, I'm going to say red, orange. If I'm mixing blue and green, I'm going to say blue, green. There's also red, violet, or some people say purple. What I've done here is I did a parallel and a vertical line, and then I've done a diagonal line as well. So that kind of creates movement and another pattern. I'm going to the next. Some other patterns that you can do are like dots. You could do dashes. Something I could show you is some stippling. So if you stipple, I'm going to use this paintbrush. If you stipple, you're kind of working with dots or dashes, and you're going, I'll demonstrate that with the black, because then it'll kind of be gradient as well. So you make dots close together to look darker, and I'll try to demonstrate so you can like really see it. So the more you space out your dots, the lighter it's going to look from a distance. So the closer your dots are together, the darker it's going to look. And then as you go, if you want it to be lighter, you have your dots spaced out a lot more. And as I was doing this, I thought, I want black dots on my paper. So I'm going to do that. Like this is what my classroom looks like. I have a stage in my classroom. I've got a desk. My students just helped me paint a big bed sheet, and so I've got colors and dots and glitter. I had lots of fun. So then I just added black dots, and that just kind of, it really pops off. I love that. You could do, oh, I got some other things I like to do. I like to add in like some lines. Oftentimes I like to create pattern paper and then use it later for collage. So like rip it up or cut it up. Like I could like cut out some like shapes for a bird and make a bird. That'd be really fun. So then I added in some lines. So that's really fun. Yeah, turned out great. Okay, one of the big important things after you have created is cleaning up your mess. So when you're at home creating, it's okay to make a mess, but then we need to make sure that we're cleaning up our mess. So I like to make sure that I'm cleaning up my paintbrushes. I like to use soap and swirl it in my hand, dry it off. Don't leave it in the sink. Don't leave it in the paint. I tell my students that makes the paintbrushes sad. And then also when I'm done, I like to store the paintbrushes up in the cup, because if you don't, you smash them and it makes them all sad and they get bent. So that's really important. So in my classroom, the students are in charge of washing their paintbrushes, drying them up, and making sure that they're up in the cup, kind of like a hairdo. You want to be nice to the hair and make sure that it's up straight. Make sure also when you're cleaning it, you want to like take your paintbrush and smooth it out so it's nice and pointed, doesn't have crazy hair. It's kind of like you're shampooing and conditioning your hair, kind of brushing it when it's done, making it look nice. So it's ready to go for you or for the next person to use it. You want to leave it the way you got it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, make it look nice for the next person. Oh, thank you so much. Sometimes it's nice to have a helper help you clean up your stuff. Look what I'm gonna do. I splattered all my table, so I'm gonna clean up my table. I got some paper towels and some water, so I'm just gonna do a quick cleanup here. Get all that off. All right, and then I'll throw all my stuff away because I want to leave no trace. That's another thing we do in my classroom. Leave no trace. So thank you for showing up and hanging out with me today. I hope I gave you a ton of ideas. I hope I gave you enough examples. Once again, comment on this post if you have any questions. Feel free to share what you've made with us. We would really love that here at the Blandin Art Museum. Thank you.